the Dallas Cowboys fired their head coach, Jason Garrett, and it was a really messy breakup. And I want to talk all about it because, first you need to know the history, by the way, of Jason Garrett with the Dallas Cowboys. In the early 90s and the 90s, Jason Garrett was the backup quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. He was the backup to the Hall of Fame quarterback, Troy Aikman. And in 2007, Jason Garrett took a job as the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, and then in 2010 was elevated to the role of head coach. Now, the most important part of the story is that Jason Garrett spent time in the 90s backing up Troy Aikman. So Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, has this image of Jason Garrett, that Jason Garrett is this young guy from Princeton, a rookie quarterback from Princeton University, backing up the Hall of Fame quarterback, Troy Aikman. Jason Garrett is viewed as this young guy. And if you know someone for a long time, changing your perspective, your perception of them is really, really hard. I went to Cincinnati recently, and everybody in Cincinnati goes, man, this city has really changed in the last 10 years. But people that have, frequently come to Cincinnati and back say that the city really changed 7 years ago. But it took 7 years for people that live there and see it every day to really notice the changes. My point is that it's really, really hard to change your perception of something, to change your view of something you're really, really close to. The Cincinnati locals saw the city the way they saw for the last 10 years ago and had a hard time changing their perspective. Jerry Jones had a hard time changing his perception of Jason Garrett. In his mind, he was always still that young kid from Princeton who came in to back up Troy Aikman in the 90s. There's a really cool TV show I love called Kitchen Nightmares, and you'll see this occasionally where a father will buy his daughter or his son a restaurant, but then the dad can't give up control to the kid because his view of the kid is that there's still this child running around in diapers and they cannot change their perception. And then that father will micromanage and, try to control everything and not trust the kid to run it their way. And I think that's exactly what happened with Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones had this view of Jason Garrett that he was this young guy from Princeton, and he never grew up in his mind because he'd known him for so long. And when you know a person that long, it's hard to change your perception of them. And that's why Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, would frequently meddle and try to control things with the former head coach. And then the way that the Cowboys fired Jason Garrett, it's not good. It's so, it reeked of dysfunction is how I would put it. The firing process took way too long, and it dragged on and on and on. And there's a quote that says, hire slow and fire fast. They fired slow, and they did a disservice to Jason Garrett and to their own football team and their franchise by not getting rid of Jason Garrett quickly. Stringing people along is not caring. I think that, the Cowboys took forever because they were holding Jason Garrett in limbo. They didn't want to hurt his feelings. They were trying to care for him. But the reality is the longer you string someone along, the more you hurt them and the worse it is for them. And, there was a moment where the Cowboys were interviewing new head coaches before they'd even fired their old head coach. How sick and messed up is that? Mike McCarthy came in to interview with the Cowboys while Jason Garrett was still technically had the title and the role of head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That's bizarre. Imagine your girlfriend going on dates with other guys while you're still dating her. That's what happened. Or look at it from the other perspective. Imagine going on dates with somebody who is still in a relationship saying, if you're good enough, we'll break up with the person we're currently with. How weird and awful is that? Again, it's so sick, and the word is dysfunctional. The Cowboys, the relationship between Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones was a dysfunctional mess. And then, the way they treated Jason Garrett was not honorable. It wasn't caring. They should have just cut bait, fired him, and moved on with their lives. And then the fact that Jason Garrett allowed himself to be strung along is even more sad. And I get it, man. I believe that for a long time, Jason Garrett held the dream of being the Dallas Cowboys head coach. That was something he wanted and yearned for a long time, probably for years. I would love that job title. And then when he finally got that dream, he finally was told, hey, here's the crown. Here, young prince, you're the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. It felt so good. And then so much of your self-worth gets wrapped up in that. This is why I feel so bad for Jason Garrett. He got fired from his dream job. I mean, that's painful. There's a reason why Jason Garrett took so long to leave. They knew how much it would hurt the guy to get fired. I am sure that he put so much of his identity into his role as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. And when you get fired from your dream job or you work so long for one thing and then it gets taken away from you, you go, oh, man, I have no idea where to go next. I don't even know where to begin. My whole life was this thing, and now it's taken away from me. What do I do now? It's brutal. And I just go back to this whole situation, the way that the Cowboys treated Jason Garrett, the way that Jason Garrett stuck around. All of it is just so dysfunctional. The relationship between Jerry Jones and Jason Garrett was awful. And I think it's so good the Cowboys moved on to this new head coach, Mike McCarthy. The baggage from the past is gone. There's not a long history between the head coach and the owner. They get to start fresh and get to start on with a different relationship, not with a former player who's been around for years. No, Mike McCarthy has won a Super Bowl. And that is where the relationship with Jerry Jones can begin. Hi, I'm Mike McCarthy. I'm a good head coach. I've won a Super Bowl. Trust me. I think the relationship between Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones is going to be far different, with a lot more respect and a lot more reverence. And I think it's going to encourage Jerry Jones to meddle a lot less. Now, Jerry Jones is going to have a radio show. It's what he does. It's going to sound like he has all this inside information. But I think that my belief is that Jerry Jones is going to operate now far more as a fan rather than as a meddling owner. And that's a huge distinction and a huge difference. Jerry Jones can be a fan of what's going on in the Cowboys organization. Doesn't have to have his hands deep in the cookie jar trying to make changes and trying to control things. I think at some point, Jerry Jones is going to bring in Mike McCarthy, and he's going to become part of the Cowboys family because that's what Jerry Jones does. But again, I think that this is an opportunity for the Cowboys owner and head coach to have a different relationship with more respect and more reverence rather than the unhealthy baggage that Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones had because of their years of knowing each other and years of friendship and years of weird heartache and all kinds of stuff. It's just a very uncomfortable situation, and I'm glad the dysfunction is gone from the Dallas Cowboys, and they can move forward with a better head coach.